Welcome to another episode of the ScruTone Podcast. Our guest is Jash Dholani, known to many online as the Old Books Guy. He's a writer, thinker, and influencer who has been passionately advocating for the enduring value of classical literature and philosophy in our digital age. In a world where information is just a click away and skills seems to dominate the conversation, Jash argues that we still need Homer, Plato, and the great works of culture to orient ourselves. Today, we will explore why classics matter in 2025, how philosophy can enrich our lives, and why thinkers like Roger Scruton continue to resonate. Thank you for accepting the invitation and welcome to the studio.
Thank you for inviting me, Naomi.
So, Jash, you often speak about the enduring value of classical literature. In your view, why does a classic still matter today when almost any text can be accessed instantly and discussions tend to favor innovation over tradition?
Yeah, discussions do tend to favor innovation over tradition. There's almost an anxiety of always going after the future. One quote that I've been thinking about, it comes from G.K. Chesterton. He said that the future is a refuge from the fierce competition of our forefathers. So he said that the future isn't something that we are going after for a positive reason, but for a negative reason. He said that there's just so much in the past that we cannot hope to mimic, so much great architecture, such faith, such sacrifice, such heroism. So the past is really this gallery of heroes and legends who were real people that we cannot match up to. And to escape from all that, we run towards the future. So the future is a refuge from the competition of our forefathers. And that's so true, right? And one word that I'm increasingly thinking about is like mythic, right? Like, why do classics matter? Because they're mythic, right? There's something, all these old myths and all these old books, in some, if there are stories, there is a mythic texture to them. There's something about, and well, then, which begs the question, what's a myth? And one good definition, which comes from another of my favorite writers, Tom Robbins, is he has a very funny definition of a myth, which is that a myth is something that never happened and is always happening. So these mythic stories perhaps might not be 100% accurate. They might not be an accurate historical record of what happened, but what they do is they capture the human story, which is always happening, right? So they capture the timeless problems which human beings always face, and they dramatize these choices that human beings always have to make, and that is what makes them so resonant thousands of years later.
May I ask who is your favorite hero in the mythology or in the history?
Yeah, wow, I have, there are many who speak to me, but Apollo from the Greek mythology. Mm-hmm. So Apollo is one of many sun gods throughout different mythologies. And I like sun gods. I like the Egyptian sun god Ra, and I like the Indian sun god Surya. One of my favorite temples in India is a sun temple, which is almost 1,000 years old. And I think the sun gods are very interesting, but they are very ignored, and they're they're not really discussed. But they are a very interesting, underrated part of, I think, global mythology.
Okay, some argue that in the skill-oriented world of today, with AI and specialized training, classical education or reading feels like a luxury. How do you respond to someone who says, why bother reading Homer or Dante when I can learn coding, data analysis, or marketing skills?
Yeah, it's not either or, right? Like, why not be good at marketing and read Dante, right? Yeah, it's not either or. It's this. Robert Heinlein had the famous quote that specialization is for insects. If you're a human being, you should know how to do multiple things. And I can perhaps understand, as a young person, you think that these older stories are meaningless, but it's almost everything else that's meaningless. The source of the meaning lies in stories. It's not going to lie. It's not going to be inside some technical coding manual, right? So I think people should learn whatever they want to learn to become economically successful, right? I mean, you want to be rich, you want to learn coding, do it. You want to be rich, you want to start a company, do it. But the point of reading Dante, or for me, Nietzsche, who is my favorite writer, isn't, I don't read Nietzsche because he makes me earn more in the marketplace, right? I mean, I read Nietzsche because he gives me ideas with which I can think more clearly, which is important. I mean, ultimately, life is not just this single economic, like life has all these different tracks, right? There's the economic track, which things which we do for money. But then there's the spiritual track, then there's the philosophical track. There is the interpersonal track, right? Your relationships with people. All these other tracks, what about them? So you have to live on all the tracks, and that is where some of the old books might come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about career and jobs, philosophy is often dismissed as impractical or irrelevant. Yet you've referenced philosophical ideas in your writing and commentary. Why do you think reading philosophy remains crucial, even if it doesn't always yield direct career outcomes?
Yeah, and it might in fact it might actually does lead to some direct, I saw a graph once which was all the humanities majors and who makes the most money. And philosophy majors make the most money of all the humanities majors. Good. Are you a philosophy major? Yeah. So that is interesting, right? Because philosophy teaches you to think, again, like properly studied. What philosophy will do is it will tell you to differentiate between right and wrong, ultimately, after thinking a lot. But that is what it's training you to do. Philosophy is the found, and the beautiful thing about philosophy is just how much you have to choose from, right? Plato doesn't philosophize the way that Nietzsche philosophizes, or like Scruton will philosophize in a different way. La Rochefoucauld, who was a French aristocrat and a philosopher from 500 years ago, they have such a different style. So you just have so much to choose from. So no matter what type of a person you are, you will be able to find someone you can learn something from or relate to.
Okay, so talking about Roger Scruton, he's sometimes evoked as a defender of tradition, culture, and the classical spirit. What aspects of Scruton's work or thought resonate most with you? And do you have a favorite essay, book, or idea of his that you return to?
Yeah, I'll tell you about the books in a little bit, but I, in fact, want to read something from Roger Scruton. He just wrote so many interesting things. I took some notes before this. Okay. And he had this beautiful line about the conservative instinct, right? Mm-hmm. And he said that conservatism starts from a sentiment that all mature people can readily share, which is that good things are easily destroyed, but not easily created, right? And I think this is so important that, if we were kids on a beach and we were competing over who can build the tallest sandcastle, and if you were like better than me, right, and your sandcastle was just beautiful and it was symmetric and it was just standing still, you might work on that sandcastle for 1 hour. And then, you're like, hey, my sandcastle is ready. It's so nice. And then I can just come and kick it over. And it will take me 1 second. So somehow the world is, easier for destroyers. But the conservative instinct is very simple. It almost doesn't even have anything to do with politics. It doesn't begin there. It begins with the simple feeling that it's so hard to create something. It's even simple things. And it's so easy to destroy, even complex things, right? Like a cathedral might take, the Cologne Cathedral in Germany took 700 years to build. So you're talking about, 20, 30 generations like working in tandem to build this beautiful building, and it can be destroyed in much less than 700 years, right? That's the sad reality about the imbalance between creation and destruction. And the conservative project is to somehow, the conservative project comes up to as a reaction to that, because we want to create and then we want to preserve what we have created against forces that seek to destroy what we have created. And that's where the conservative instinct comes from. It's where conservative politics comes from. So the great thing about Scruton was his ability to just cut through the complexities of culture, society, politics, economics, technology, and arrive at the essence and the core and the central idea of whatever he was talking about, which that is what makes him such a engaging, timeless thinker.
I would like to stop a little bit at the meaning of conservatism.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you mentioned this word, because it's very interesting that conservatism is means different things in different cultures.
Yeah.
And you come from India. Do you feel any differences, conservatism in India and in Europe?
Oh yeah, massive differences, right? I think if you come to India, when you come to India, I hope you do, one day it will take you a week to even understand what is right wing and left wing, conservative and liberal in India. It's totally different. I think there is such a thing, and people always sort of like bicker over this and they have arguments over it, but like even within the conservative movement, there are people who are like, oh, we're the true conservatives, and then other people are like, no, we're the true conservatives. So there is always that. I think it's the question. There are so many questions. One of them is that, what are you conserving? Are you even at a point where, like, if the people who destroy things, if they have been successful, then there's not much left to conserve. So the task of a conservative isn't always to conserve. Sometimes it's to defend and conserve, but sometimes it's to create. So I think different societies are at different points in the loop. Sometimes you do have a system which works, which is functional and competent and effective, and the system just has to be conserved. Sometimes you don't have a system which is functional and effective, and then you need to create systems, right? So I think perhaps the conservative movement in India is or should be more creative, because there's so much to do. There is just so much to do, and there is a great history and tradition, and India has probably a longer past than any other country in the world, right? Some of the oldest cities in the world, and so on. And yet it feels like a younger place than Europe, perhaps, to me. I've not spent that much time in Europe. This is my third time. But that's what I've felt, that in India, the energy is more sort of like creative conservative. And perhaps in Europe, it's more like conservative, like there's just, there is a system in place, and now the challenge is to sort of like defend it from attacks. Does that make sense?
Yes,
okay.
Of course. So back to the digital age.
Yes.
In a time when attention spans are shrinking and digital content dominates, how do you think classics can compete for relevance, or should they even try to compete at all?
Yeah, I think this is a hoax, by the way. I don't think attention spans are shrinking. So tell me something. What do you enjoy? Do you enjoy movies, music? Like, what's your thing?
I enjoy them, movies.
Yeah, yes. But if I ask you, what do you love to do? Like, what is that thing for you? I think you enjoy sailing, actually.
Yeah.
Right? When you're sailing, do you feel your attention go anywhere?
No.
Right? It doesn't. You're right there. You're right there with your boat. Yeah. You're right there with the water. But if I gave you something which is boring, which you dislike, your attention is just going to go everywhere. So the attention span crisis is just a crisis of you not doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? Having said that, the problem with the way the screen works is that it can't actually give you something actually wholesome and nutritional. Like if you're eating, right, and you eat something good, you stop. Like you're full. You have taken in the nutrition that you wanted. Now you don't want to keep eating. But if you eat terrible food like junk food, you just want to keep eating, right? Because it's so empty. And if someone does feel like their attention span is not what it should be, then they should stop engaging with empty content, just hollow junk, deficient, nutritionally, void content. I think that is the type of content that you just waste 6 hours on. If you're reading something interesting, you'll read it, you'll keep the phone down. And I think that is actually the solution.
It's a good tip for everyone. And my final question is, if you had to make the case for classics to a 20-year-old today who has never opened Plato or Shakespeare, what would be your one-sentence speech?
I actually wouldn't tell them to read the classics, right? To be honest with you, even though my Twitter is the old books guy, and I usually talk about books which are hundreds of years old. I wouldn't tell anyone to read the classics. I would tell them to first decide what you're interested in. Like if we were interacting for the first time and you were like, oh, what book should I read? I would be like, what are your interests, right? What are your obsessions? What do you enjoy thinking about? And once I know that, then I can tell you, hey, go read books about that, right? You shouldn't read what I read. You shouldn't read what you're supposed to read, what your school tells you to read. You should read what you're interested in. You should read what you're already thinking about. Everyone has those subjects, that there are some topics which I've been thinking about for 10 years, 15 years, because that's just where my brain naturally goes. So if your brain is into art, creativity, then you should read about art and creativity. If your brain goes towards history, if you find yourself thinking about why the past was so different, what were the people like 2000 years ago? What did they believe? How did they live? If you think like that, if those are your questions, then yeah, you should read Homer, and you should read the classics, and you should read these older books. Totally. So for step one, what are you interested in? What are you already thinking about? Step two, find the right book for that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jash,
for
joining us today.
Yeah, it was great fun.
Thanks.
Yeah.